오늘은 한강 특집으로 생방송합니다.
If you have wondered what the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine is about this year, wait no more, because here is the presentation speech by Professor Richard Sandberg from the Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institutet.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed Nobel Prize laureates, ladies and gentlemen. For a moment, I invite you to look around this majestic hall. Imagine that we are not in a concert hall, but inside a human cell. Look at the wonderful orchestra behind me, representing our genetic information, our DNA. Now let each musician with their respective instrument correspond to a single gene. In a real cell, however, there are about 20,000 such performing genes, each playing a tone and rhythm for different cellular traits and functions. For an orchestra of this magnitude, effective conducting is naturally very important. For decades, it was known that proteins called transcription factors were conductors needed to guide the cellular symphony by amplifying or dampening the performing genes. This year's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine is about the surprising discovery of a novel type of conductors called microRNAs that provide additional and crucial guidance over the cellular orchestra. MicroRNAs are conductors with a special ability. Instead of passionately making gestures to either amplify or dampen music intensity, microRNAs tell musicians only when to quiet down or take a break. You there, play softer. You take a break. Victor Ambros and Gary Ruvkun investigated how genes control organ development in a 1 millimeter long worm. More than a decade of persistent research led them to discover the first microRNAs and to discover how microRNAs control gene activity. MicroRNAs bind messenger RNA, the intermediate carrier of genetic information from the DNA to protein production, thereby reducing protein or messenger RNA amounts. Their groundbreaking discovery in a small worm had major implications for humans and all multicellular life. MicroRNA genes were soon found across animals and plants, and even in certain viruses. In fact, animal microRNAs arose around 600 million years ago, when cells organized into more complex life forms, and microRNAs expanded in numbers in their genomes. The human genome contains around 1,000 microRNAs that control the activity of other genes through embryonic development and in adulthood. You there, play softer. You take a break. The laureates are excellent examples of how curiosity-driven basic research, exploring fundamental questions about cellular and organismal function, can advance our understanding of physiology and medicine in ways that couldn't have been predicted. Basic research is the driver of biomedical knowledge. Thanks to the groundbreaking discovery and research performed by Ambros and Ruvkun, a highly unexpected yet crucial layer of gene regulation was uncovered that is essential for complex multicellular life. The microRNAs regulate the activity of other genes to keep us alive and thriving. The laureates have revealed that sometimes the most beautiful cellular music comes not just from knowing when to play, but knowing when to be quiet. Dear Professors Ambrose and Rovkin, on behalf of the Nobel Assembly at the Karolinska Institutet, it is my great honor to convey to you our warmest congratulations. And I invite you now to step forward to receive the Nobel Prize from the hands of His Majesty the King.
Since the most beautiful cellular music comes not just from knowing when to play, but knowing when to be quiet, I will do just that and let you listen to some nice music instead. Soloist Ingela Brindberg performed A Letter Arrived by Gunnar de Frumery with lyrics by Per Lagerkvist, a former Nobel laureate, author receiving the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1951, and now for the Literature Prize 2024.
Ärade pristagare, mina damer och herrar. Två färger möts.
Two colors meet in Han Kang's writing, white and red.
Det vita är
The white is the snow that falls in so many of her books, drawing a protective curtain between the narrator and the world. But white is also the color of sorrow and death. Red stands for life, but also for pain, blood, the deep cuts of a knife. While her voice can be seductively soft, it speaks of indescribable cruelty, of irreparable loss. Blood flows from the bodies piled up after the massacre, darkens, becomes an appeal, a question that the text can neither answer nor ignore. How should we relate to the dead, the abducted, the disappeared? What can we do for them? What do we owe them? The white and the red symbolize a historical experience that Han returns to in her novels. We do not part from 2021. The snow creates a space where a meeting can take place between the living and the dead, and those floating in between who are yet to decide which category they belong to. The entire novel is played out within a snowstorm, where, in piecing together her memories, the narrative self glides through layers of time, interacting with the shadows of the dead and learning from their knowledge. Because ultimately, it is always about knowledge and seeking out the truth, unbearable though it may be. In one exquisitely realized evocation, the friend, despite her physical body being confined to a hospital bed many miles away, is able to pull out a box of files from a shelf and find a document that adds a further piece to the historical mosaic. The dream spills over into reality, the past into present. These shifts, by which boundaries are dissolved, are a constant in Han's writing, where people move around unhindered, their feelers pointing in both directions, ready to gather and interpret signals. Perhaps they are broken down by what they see and witness, which always comes at the price of their own peace of mind. And yet they keep on going with the strength that is required. Forgetting is never the goal. Who killed me? Asks the murdered boy's soul, as the facial features that defined him in life dissolve and disappear. For the survivor, the question is a different one. How can I live on with this body that has only led me to torment? How can I regain the body that torture has reduced to nothing but a bleeding object? But when the body gives up, the soul continues to speak. When the soul tires, the body keeps on walking. Deep within lies a stubborn resistance, a quiet insistence stronger than words, a need to remember. Again, it is not the aim to forget, nor would it be possible. In Han's world, people are wounded, fragile, in some sense weak, and yet they possess just enough strength and just the right kind of strength to take another step or ask another question, request another document or interview another surviving witness. As the light fades, the shadows of the dead continue to move around on the wall. Nothing ever passes. Never ever ends.
Dear Hangang, on behalf of the Swedish Academy, it is my privilege to convey to you our warmest congratulations on the Nobel Prize in Literature 2024. May I now please ask you to step forward and receive your prize from His Majesty the King.
And this presentation speech by Ellen Mattsson, a member of the Swedish Academy, that has awarded Han Kang the Literature Prize 2024. Leading up to the final prize, we will enjoy a short musical interlude. Performed by the Royal Stockholm Philharmonic Orchestra under conductor Johannes Gustafsson. Orvalia, a Dance by English composer Ruth Gibbs. And now to the prize in economic sciences, where two of the laureates are from Great Britain originally. And the presentation speech is presented by Professor Jan Thorell.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed laureates, ladies and gentlemen. Not long ago, Sweden was a poor country, run with societal institutions only benefiting a narrow elite. Today, however, Sweden is one of the few lucky countries in the world enjoying both inclusive institutions and economic prosperity. Sweden has it all. So, if you come from a country like Sweden, you may think it obvious that institutions cause growth. But because we have it all, this is actually far from obvious. How can we be so sure it's not the other way around, that we can afford these inclusive institutions because of our economic prosperity? Or maybe, by some strike of luck in the distant past, some other underlying factor gave us both the institutions and our prosperity. In a very innovative move, this year's laureates solved this empirical conundrum by studying a huge intervention in human history, the colonization by the Europeans of large parts of the world, starting in the 16th century. By creatively using historical data on how vastly different the institutions were that emanated from this colonial experience, they were able to provide solid evidence for a causal effect of institutions on growth. But their contribution was not only empirical. Through a series of original game theoretical models, they were also able to explain why institutions are so difficult to change. And these insights, as it happens, actually apply directly to the case of Sweden. Not far from here, in December 1918, the Swedish Parliament, on a late December night, about as cold as this one, passed an important government bill to secure both female and equal suffrage for the Swedish population. This particular decision can be seen as the eclipse of a series of reforms of both the political and economic institutions of Sweden. But the decision didn't come lightly. The conservatives, whose economic benefits were on the line, fought hard against it. In the end, on that cold December night, they accepted defeat. Why did they? The short answer is to thwart an imminent threat of revolution. The political situation in Stockholm at this time was tense as a bowstring. The year before had seen the Russian Revolution. Also in neighboring Finland, a civil war was raging. And then in early November 1918, the abdication of the German emperor sent shockwaves throughout the continent that also reached the Swedish capital. At this moment, the Swedish military conscripts were effectively disarmed, and an armored boat with a loyal crew moored in the waters close to the Swedish Parliament building. Yet, the conservatives understood a crucial thing. They couldn't sweet-talk themselves out of this situation. Simply promising future welfare reforms for the material benefit of the general population wouldn't do the trick, because everyone understood that come the day when the situation had calmed down, such promises could easily be broken. Thus, the only way to appease the masses was to relinquish power itself by extending the franchise. The more general significance of this so-called commitment problems has also been highlighted by the laureates. And it helps us understand not only why institutions are so persistent, but also why they sometimes, as in Sweden in 19, change. Professors Acemoglu, Johnson, and Robinson. These contributions are also of practical importance. because the huge and persistent income gap between the poorest and richest countries in the world has enormous consequences for billions of people living in the world today. And your work shows that promoting democracy and inclusive institutions is an important way forward for closing this gap. So, it is my honor and my privilege to convey to you, on behalf of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, our deepest and warmly felt congratulations. Now, please step forward and accept the prize from His Majesty the King.
And first laureate to do so is Daron Ajamoglu, with a Turkish-Armenian background, who moved to Great Britain early in his life for studies, and since many years is an American citizen working at MIT in Boston. At which institution also Simon Johnson is affiliated. Simon, who, when he doesn't do research, is a great football fan. And of course, Sheffield Wednesday is his team, just as his father's, I understand. And James Robinson at the University of Chicago, a great aficionado, or I don't know what to say. The correct word would probably be very interested in everything that has to do with African culture and history. Many of the historical perspectives in this research are probably due to him and his interest in that. And now it's time for the awards ceremony to conclude. That was the Swedish national anthem. And now the Queen of Sheba's Festivity March from the Prodigal Son by Hugo Alfvén is played while the guests are leaving the auditorium. And to that music, I wish to thank you very much for joining us here in Stockholm today on the 10th of December for the 2024 Nobel Prize Awards ceremony.